There are days when you feel like you've tried everything and still nothing changes. You wake up with a tired body and an empty soul, as if the world were watching you without moving. You act, insist, correct, plan, and yet nothing seems to flow. What you touch resists, what you desire drifts away, what you wait for never arrives. Then the truth appears, cold and brutal. The more you force something, the further it moves from you. Life doesn't open under pressure, it opens under surrender. And though no one ever told you so clearly, there comes a moment when you understand that what you don't let go of holds you, that what you try to control is, in fact, what controls you. For years we were taught to resist, to push, to hold on, even to what hurts us, under the false idea that surrendering means failing. But the real failure is to keep insisting where life has already closed the door. It is wasting energy, trying to hold on to what has expired, trying to convince destiny to change its plans simply because they don't align with yours. You didn't realize it, but you became a hostage of your own expectations. And there, in that desperate attempt to make everything happen the way you imagine, is where anxiety, frustration, and exhaustion are born, the very things stealing your peace. Stoicism warned of this centuries ago. Human suffering doesn't come from events themselves, but from the desire for them to be different. Epictetus summarized it perfectly. Do not seek for things to happen as you wish, but wish for things to happen as they do, and your life will flow serenely. But we did the opposite. We clung. We wanted to mold life to our liking, to speed up what wasn't ready, to control what was never ours to begin with. And in that unconscious arrogance, we forgot something essential. The universe already has an order, a rhythm, a logos. It doesn't need you to tell it how to move. It needs you to learn how to move with it. Letting go is not weakness. It is spiritual intelligence. It's recognizing that there are forces beyond your control and still choosing to trust. It's looking at uncertainty without running from it. It's acting without anxiety and accepting without resignation. The soul that lets go doesn't do so because it's giving up, but because it understands that its energy is worth more than its fear. And when you reach that point, when you truly let go, not with words but with the soul, something almost invisible yet real happens. Life begins to respond, not because the external reality changes, but because you change the way you inhabit it. The day you stop forcing, something within you realigns. It's as if the universe had been waiting for you all along, silently watching as you insisted on walking paths that were never yours. And when you finally let go, it moves. Not because it's magic, but because you stop interfering. The current was always there, you were just swimming against it. Flow isn't luck, it's coherence. And coherence is born the moment your mind stops fighting what's inevitable. Think of all the times you suffered trying to control outcomes, trying to make someone change, trying to plan every detail of something that ultimately unfolded differently from what you expected. Yet when you look back, you realize everything aligned in a wiser way than you could have imagined. That loss created space for an opportunity. That silence taught you patience. That failure forced you to redirect your gaze. The Stoics called this amor fati, love of fate, even when you don't understand it. It isn't romanticism, it's a deep acceptance of life's natural flow. The day you let go, everything that once felt stuck begins to move. Not because the universe changes, but because you change the way you exist within it. Your energy becomes lighter, your mind clearer, your heart more open. And from that openness, you begin to attract, not from urgency, but from serenity. You no longer chase, you invite. You no longer demand, you allow. Manifestation isn't magic or superstition. It's the natural consequence of a soul that stops opposing its own order. The Stoic knows what flows with you belongs to you. What demands anxiety to be sustained is asking to be released. Not every broken bond is a tragedy. Not every waiting period is a waste of time. Not every pause is failure. Sometimes silence is the answer. Sometimes emptiness is preparation. What you don't yet understand will one day become clarity. And in the meantime, the exercise is to trust, not blindly, but with the calm of someone who knows everything finds its proper place. Stopping the struggle is an act of love toward yourself, because a mind that forces lives in constant tension, and tension leaves no space for wisdom. Letting go is trusting again in the order of the cosmos, that perfect balance that was always operating even when you doubted it. Life doesn't owe you explanations, it offers lessons, and each one invites you to the same choice, peace over control. So today, as you listen to these words, pause for a moment. Breathe, feel the air enter, drop your shoulders, unclench your jaw, relax your chest. You don't need to push the day. You don't need to have it all figured out. You only need presence, because everything that is truly meant for you will never need to be forced. It will come in its time, with the gentleness of the inevitable. The universe doesn't reward haste. It rewards trust. When you let go, you don't lose control. You regain balance. You stop being a hostage to what you cannot manage and return to inhabit the only thing that was ever truly yours, the present moment. There, in the now, the universe always responds, but not with noise, with calm, not with promises, but with signs. And then you understand. It wasn't the universe that was silent. It was you who spoke too much. Before we begin, I want you to declare your commitment by leaving in the comments, "From today, I trust what I let go of." That phrase will be your constant reminder that you're here to stop fighting life, to release the weight of control, anxiety, and the need to force what doesn't depend on you. Today, you're here to practice the greatest act of trust, to believe that the universe is not against you, but waiting for you to align with it. This is the moment to let go consciously, to release what no longer vibrates with you, to close what drains your energy, to allow life to do its part. Today, you're not here to surrender, you're here to allow, because the one who lets go doesn't lose, they are set free. And when you let go from serenity, the universe doesn't take long to respond. Without further preamble, let's begin. First Stoic lesson: to stop forcing is to trust the order of the cosmos. There is an invisible tension that follows you every morning, the need to control. You wake up thinking about what must go right, about the messages you can't forget, about the plans that must be carried out perfectly. You check your schedule again and again, your mind, your past, and without realizing it, your day begins with a silent battle, you against reality. It's as if a part of you believed that the universe doesn't know what it's doing, that if you're not alert to every detail, everything will collapse. But that idea, so deeply rooted and exhausting, is the root of your suffering, because the more you try to force the order of things, the further you drift from the natural order of life. Stoicism explained it with precision. The cosmos is logos, a reason that organizes everything. An intelligence that knows more than your anxiety. You don't need to manipulate the flow, you only need to move with it. Marcus Aurelius said in his meditations, "Whatever happens, happens as it should." And yet we struggle to believe it. We think that without pressure, nothing moves, that without effort, there's no merit, that letting go means losing. But there's no deeper wisdom than learning to let things be. The wise don't fight the current, they align with it. They understand that the river of life doesn't need to be pushed, it needs space to flow. When you stop forcing, something happens that at first feels like a contradiction. Everything begins to fall into place. Decisions become clearer, relationships more sincere, opportunities more natural. Not because the universe suddenly changes, but because you change the way you see it. When you let go of control, you cleanse the lens of your perception. You no longer interpret every event as a threat. You see it as part of a larger design you can't yet comprehend. And that humility, the willingness to admit you don't know everything, is the doorway to true serenity. But letting go can't be learned from books. It's learned in the moments when something doesn't turn out as you hoped, in the silence after a loss, in the call that never comes, in the plan that falls apart. That's where the soul is forced to choose, to resist or to trust. Resistance is the ego's reaction, which believes everything must revolve around its desires. Trust is the act of faith of the wise, who recognize that even the unexpected has meaning. Nature doesn't make mistakes. Everything happens at exactly the moment it's meant to, even if you don't yet understand why. Imagine a tree that doesn't argue with winter. It doesn't complain that the cold steals its leaves. It waits. It remains in silence. It trusts that spring will come when it's time. That is the order of the cosmos, a perfect rhythm that doesn't depend on your hurry or your fear. When you understand that, your life becomes lighter. You begin to rest within the movement of things themselves. You no longer try to fix everything. You simply observe, adjust, flow. And suddenly you realize that control was never power. It was burden. Epictetus said, "Whoever wishes things to be as they are is free." That phrase, so simple, contains an inner revolution, because accepting the natural order doesn't mean passivity. It means acting from clarity. It means doing what you can and trusting what doesn't depend on you. The difference lies in where you place your energy. If you pour it into what's beyond your control, you lose it. If you focus it on your attitude, you multiply it. You stop being a victim of chaos and become a collaborator in harmony. The order of the cosmos doesn't need your fear, it needs your trust. It needs you to understand that even when it seems like nothing is happening, something is. That silences aren't punishments, but pauses necessary for the next movement. That delays, obstacles and losses aren't mistakes, but part of the invisible architecture guiding you to your exact place. When you accept that, your body relaxes, your breath changes, your mind clears, because resistance is tension and trust is expansion. Ask yourself today, what am I forcing? What part of my life feels heavy because I won't let it be? Maybe it's not a job or a relationship, but an idea, how you think your life should be. Let it go. Allow life to surprise you. It's not weakness, it's practical wisdom. The Stoics knew this. Those who try to control the world lose peace. Those who control their reaction gain freedom. There can be no harmony when you think you know everything, but there is infinite serenity when you dare to say, "I don't know, but I trust." That phrase has power. It's a conscious surrender, a declaration of faith in the natural balance of the universe. And it's strange, when you truly speak it from the heart, something shifts. Things stop feeling against you. You suddenly understand that nothing that happened was punishment, that even your mistakes were pushing you toward growth, that there is no randomness, only wisdom in motion. Next time you feel anxiety, don't punish yourself. Observe it. Behind every attempt to control lies an unacknowledged fear. Ask yourself what you're trying to avoid: failure, abandonment, uncertainty. There lies the core of your resistance, and only by looking at it without running away can you transform it. Because trust doesn't mean closing your eyes, it means opening your soul. It means choosing peace over certainty. And when you do, life begins to move without you having to push. You're not alone in this process. At some point, we all learn to let go the hard way. But there's another way, to learn to let go consciously, from awareness, from love, from the deep understanding that everything, even what hurts, serves your growth. You don't need to understand it all today. You only need one small act of trust, to breathe and let life breathe with you. That's where true order begins, not in the cosmos, but within you, because the universe always knew what it was doing. The only one who needed to remember was you. Second Stoic lesson: excessive control is born from fear. There is a truth the mind fears to admit. The impulse to control everything doesn't come from strength, it comes from fear. Fear of losing, fear of not being enough, fear that life will fall apart if you're not in charge. It's a subtle trap because, on the surface, it looks like discipline, but underneath, it's anxiety. When you check the same thing over and over, when you can't delegate, when you feel guilty if something isn't perfect, what's acting isn't your reason, it's your fear. The fearful mind controls, the trusting mind flows. Fear is ancient. It's rooted in the instinct for survival. It taught us to foresee danger, to protect what we love, to guard ourselves from the unknown. But over time, that instinct became a prison. We no longer run from predators. We run from the future. We try to shield ourselves from pain, to anticipate every outcome, to secure every result. We believe that if we prepare for everything, suffering won't find us. Yet the same fear that tries to protect us is what keeps us in constant conflict with reality. Epictetus said it with brutal clarity. It's not things that disturb us, but our opinions about them. What torments you isn't the event itself, it's your interpretation of it. It's not uncertainty itself, but the story your mind builds about what might happen. Fear doesn't live in the present, it lives in imagined scenarios. And that's where the need for control is born, from a desperate attempt to alter a future that exists only in imagination. But control is an illusion. No plan, no matter how detailed, can guarantee an outcome. No person, no matter how close, can perfectly meet your expectations. No path, no matter how safe, is free of turns. Life cannot be tamed. It is constant change, pure movement. Trying to fix it is like trying to catch the wind with your hands. All you accomplish is exhaustion, and the more tired you become, the more you believe you must control. It's a self-feeding cycle. The more fear, the more control, the more control, the more fear. The Stoic doesn't seek to dominate everything, only to master themselves. That's the great distinction. The wise don't fear chaos, they observe it. They know fear isn't defeated by rigidity, but by clarity. When you understand that fear isn't your enemy, but your messenger, everything changes. Because fear only appears to show you where you still don't trust. It's a mirror revealing the corners where your faith in yourself and in life still trembles. Imagine standing at the edge of a cliff. You look down and vertigo freezes you. You think the fear lies in the abyss, but it's actually in your mind. It's not the height that threatens you, it's your interpretation of it. The same happens with almost everything you try to control. It's not the situation that terrifies you, but what you believe you'll lose if you don't manage it. That's why the Stoics insisted on practicing detachment, not as coldness, but as training to remember that nothing external can steal your peace unless you allow it. Excessive control also arises from deep distrust, the belief that if you don't do it, no one will do it right. That if you let go, everything will fall apart. But the truth is, the universe doesn't need your supervision to function. The sun doesn't wait for your alarm to rise. The tides don't ask for your approval before coming and going. A greater intelligence sustains all of this, even while you sleep. Why would your life be the only exception? When you understand that, the pressure dissolves. You begin to trust. Not because you have guarantees, but because you recognize that life knows more than your anxiety. That often, what feels like loss today will reveal itself as protection tomorrow. That the path that closed a door was actually redirecting you toward a more aligned one. But to see that, you must release your fear of losing control. Fear itself isn't bad. It's a signal. It tells you, there's something here you don't yet understand. If instead of running you listen, if you observe without judgment, it turns into wisdom. The anxious mind screams, but the calm soul understands. And what it understands is simple. You can't control the wave, but you can learn to surf it. Control tightens you. Trust trains you. One shrinks your life, the other expands it. In every person who seeks control lives a child who once felt everything could fall apart, and that child decided never to let anything slip through their hands again. But you are no longer that child. Today, you can allow yourself to trust. You can stop checking your phone every minute, stop needing approval, stop anticipating betrayal. You can live from presence, not from suspicion. Because what fear calls danger, Awareness calls opportunity. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Everything you hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything you see is a perspective, not the truth, and that includes your fears. They are perspectives, not prophecies. They don't need to rule you, only to be understood. When you stop forcing, fear loses its grip. When you breathe and accept, you discover that life was never against you. You were against it. So the next time you feel the urge to control, don't blame yourself. Just pause and ask, what am I so afraid to lose? The answer will always be the same, an illusion. The illusion that your worth depends on outcomes, on people, on stability, but your worth depends on none of that. It remains intact even as the world changes. The only thing you need to control is how you choose to respond. Let fear guide you toward trust. Let uncertainty teach you. Don't fight chaos. Listen to it. Because deep down, fear is just the echo of a soul that hasn't yet learned to rest in the order of the cosmos. And when you finally do, when you understand that security doesn't come from what you possess, but from what you accept, you'll feel a peace unlike anything else. It won't be euphoria nor a fleeting relief. It will be stability, the serenity of someone who knows they don't need to control everything because they trust that life always finds its way. Fear ceases to be an enemy when it teaches you to let go, and that is true power, not to control, but to trust. Third Stoic lesson, acceptance is the starting point. The human mind has an astonishing ability. It can imagine 1,000 versions of how life should be, yet it can only live one. And still, every day, most people choose to live in resistance, fighting what has already happened, arguing with the present, running from the inevitable. We want life to be different, and when it isn't, we suffer. It's that simple, that brutal. We don't suffer because things are hard, but because we refuse to accept that they are. Acceptance is not surrender. Acceptance is looking reality in the eye, without decoration or excuse. It's the point where illusion dies and truth begins. When you accept, you stop wasting energy arguing with what is, and that energy, once lost to complaint or denial, becomes power for action. Acceptance is the opposite of resignation. Resignation confines you. Acceptance frees you. Resignation says, this is what there is and I can't do anything. Acceptance says, this is what there is, and from here I can decide how to act. The Stoic understood this better than anyone. They didn't seek to change what was beyond their control. They sought to understand it. Marcus Aurelius, in his serene writings, summarized it in a phrase that seems simple but contains a revolution. Love whatever happens because it was made for you. It isn't conformism, it's wisdom. It means that every event, every person, every obstacle appearing on your path has a function your mind doesn't yet grasp. Resisting it doesn't erase it. It only prolongs the pain. Think about the last time something didn't go as you expected. How long did you spend telling yourself it shouldn't have been that way? How many thoughts began with, if only, or why me? That inner dialogue doesn't change facts. It just ties you to them. Acceptance doesn't mean you like what happened, nor that you approve of it. It means recognizing that it already did. That the past cannot be negotiated, that the only real space, the only place you can act, is the present. When the mind doesn't accept, it lives divided. One part wants to move forward, the other keeps arguing with yesterday, and that internal split generates anxiety, guilt, frustration. It's like trying to walk with one foot in the future and the other in the past. You end up falling. Acceptance, on the other hand, centers you. It brings you back to the now. It gives you balance, because only when you accept can you act from clarity, not from the wound. Epictetus explained it this way: don't wish events to happen as you want them to, but wish them to happen as they do, and your life will flow serenely. The serenity he spoke of wasn't passivity, it was power. The strength that arises when you stop wasting your mind on the impossible. Acceptance is an act of humility, but also of trust. Humility to recognize you don't control the world. Trust to know that even so, you are exactly where you need to be. Non-acceptance is the root of nearly all modern suffering. The mind repeats, this shouldn't happen, it shouldn't hurt, it shouldn't be this way. But the Stoic would respond, and who decided that? Who promised you life would obey your expectations? Nature doesn't promise comfort, it promises coherence. Everything that happens has a reason within the greater order of the cosmos. It may hurt, it may unsettle you, it may break you inside, but it always serves a purpose. And when you see that purpose, pain turns into wisdom. Acceptance is an art. It's learning to see what happens without disguising it, without interpreting it right away. It's letting facts speak before judging them. The impatient mind wants to understand instantly, to build a story that calms uncertainty. But acceptance requires silence. It requires you to observe, to breathe, to contemplate, to allow yourself not to understand yet, to release the urgency of making sense of everything. When you accept, something inside you aligns, your body relaxes, your breathing deepens, your heart slows down, because inner struggle drains you. When you stop resisting, you regain vital energy, and from that energy, you can act better, with more precision, less noise. Acceptance doesn't mean staying still, it means moving from serenity. Deciding without anger, speaking without pride, choosing without fear. Imagine waking up each day and saying, whatever this day brings, I will receive it with presence, not as submission, but as practice. Every event, good or bad, becomes a chance to practice virtue. Acceptance, in this sense, is spiritual discipline. It's the foundation upon which you build the rest of your strength. Without acceptance, there can be no temperance, only reactivity. The Stoics didn't speak of acceptance in theory, they lived it. Seneca, exiled, wrote his best letters through loss. Marcus Aurelius wrote his meditations in the middle of war. Epictetus taught from slavery. None of them expected the world to be fair, they learned to be fair within it. That's acceptance, not expecting a perfect environment, but cultivating a mind that stays balanced even in chaos. Ask yourself today, what part of your life are you still resisting? What event have you refused to face for fear of what accepting it might mean? Maybe it's disappointment, change, loss, whatever it is. As long as you don't accept it, it will continue to rule you. But the moment you say, yes, this happened, something releases. Not because the fact changes, but because your relationship with it does. Acceptance turns pain into teacher. Acceptance doesn't remove emotion, it gives it direction. It allows you to feel without getting trapped. You cry, yes, but without drowning. It hurts, yes, but without losing yourself. Because deep down you know that everything that arrives also passes. That life doesn't need your resistance to keep moving. That your task isn't to stop the tide, but to learn how to float. Acceptance isn't the end of the path, it's the beginning. It's the point from which true transformation arises, because only when you stop denying what is, can you build what will be. Life opens up to those who stop arguing with it. And that is the simplest and most powerful Stoic secret. Nothing external can harm you once you learn to accept. Fourth Stoic lesson. Right action needs no anxiety. We live in an era that confuses movement with progress. We rush from one place to another, filling our days with tasks, our calendars with goals, and our minds with urgency. We feel that if we're not constantly doing something, we're wasting time. But there's a truth the soul eventually forces you to face. Anxiety is not a sign of productivity, it's a sign of disconnection. You're not moving forward, you're running away, and worst of all, you're running from yourself. Stoicism warned about this centuries ago. Virtue requires no haste. True right action is born from calm, not from urgency. Marcus Aurelius wrote that a man should act as if he had all the time in the world, yet with the precision of someone who knows life is short. That paradox holds the secret of balance. It's not about doing more, but doing better. Not about running, but moving with purpose. Anxiety appears when your attention drifts away from the present, when you're doing something, but your mind has already jumped to the result. What if it doesn't go well? What if no one notices? What if I lose what I've achieved? In that moment, you stop acting and start imagining, and imagination without control is the fertile ground of anguish. The body is in the now, but the mind lives in the future. That internal separation steals your peace. Epictetus said, "Do what is yours to do and leave the rest." In those few words lies all the practical wisdom we've forgotten. What's yours is to act with coherence, to put in your effort, your virtue, your presence. What's not yours is to obsess over what you can't decide. Anxiety is born from wanting to dominate the consequences when your real power has always been in the cause, your attitude. Imagine an archer. His task is not to guarantee the arrow's impact, but to tend to the bow's tension, the direction, the breath. If he does that well, the rest is no longer up to him. The wind, the distance, luck, all that is beyond his control. But if his mind wanders toward the target, he fails before he even releases the string. That's how we live, aiming in haste, fearing to miss, forgetting that mastery lies not in the result, but in the gesture. Right action needs no anxiety because it's aligned with reason. The wise act calmly even in chaos. They know that doing what's right is enough. They don't seek approval, guarantees, or applause. They act because doing so is their moral duty, and that, by itself, is enough. The anxious mind asks, will it be worth it? The Stoic mind answers, it will be, because it's the right thing to do. Anxiety also stems from the desire to control the rhythm of others. We want people to understand, the world to respond, life to obey. But the cosmos doesn't work by our command. Everything has its own tempo. The fruit falls when it's ripe, not when you demand it. Patience, then, is not passivity. It's wisdom in motion. The one who acts in anxiety plants in unstable soil. The one who acts calmly allows the seed to germinate when it must. Seneca wrote with mirror-like clarity, "He who is agitated is not working. He is merely agitating." How many times have you felt that way? Busy all day, exhausted at night, but without real satisfaction. You did a lot, yet you don't know why. That's the trap of doing out of fear, acting from urgency. The mind fears stillness because it fears feeling. It believes that if it stops, everything will fall apart. But the opposite happens. When you stop, everything aligns. The Stoic asks before acting, does this come from reason or from restlessness? That simple question can save you from days of anxiety. If you do it out of fear, stop. If you do it out of duty, go on. The difference isn't in the outcome, but in the emotional root of your action. The same task, done with calm or anxiety, leaves entirely different marks on the soul. Right action doesn't seek to prove, it seeks to serve. It doesn't aim to impress, it aims to contribute. It's a clean gesture without ego or performance. And that purity of intention brings serenity, even if the result isn't perfect. Because deep down, you know you did what you were meant to do, that you fulfilled your role in the greater order of things, and that inner certainty is worth more than any external recognition. Think of the moments when you acted under anxiety. What remained afterward? Exhaustion, frustration, guilt. Now recall the moments when you acted from calm, without rush, without fear of the result. What remained then was peace, even if things didn't turn out exactly as you wanted. That's the difference between acting and reacting. Reacting is moving from fear, acting is moving from virtue. The Stoic knows the universe doesn't reward haste, it rewards coherence. And those who act out of anxiety seek quick results because they don't trust time. But virtue has no clock, it grows in silence, like a root. Every serene act, every decision made without pressure strengthens your character. Even if you don't notice it, you're building something fear can never destroy: inner peace. So next time you feel the urge to do everything, breathe. You're not behind. You're not missing the train. You're exactly where you need to be. What's done in anxiety rarely flourishes. What's done in calm takes root. Time isn't measured in speed but in presence, and presence is the opposite of anxiety. Action without anxiety, movement without fear, decision without rush. That is the art of self-mastery. You don't need everything to go well. You need everything you do to come from a place of serenity, because when your action arises from calm, even mistakes become teachers. Anxiety disappears when you remember that life doesn't need you to push it, only to accompany it. Fifth Stoic lesson. Inner silence creates space for clarity. We live surrounded by noise, not just the noise of the city, of conversations or screens, but a deeper one, the noise of the mind, that constant murmur that never stops, thoughts jumping endlessly from one fear to another, from one memory to one anticipation. That inner agitation is the cause of much of our suffering, because we don't hear life as it is. We hear the echo of our interpretations. We don't see the present. We see the distorted reflections that mental noise projects. Inner silence is one of the most underrated Stoic virtues. It's not about being quiet on the outside, but learning to be quiet on the inside, to suspend judgment, to stop reactive thinking, to observe without the urge to respond. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, would remind himself, "Withdraw into yourself, for within the mind of man dwells a wellspring of goodness that never runs dry." But that source can only be found when the waters of thought stop trembling. When the mind grows still, reality appears sharply. It's like cleaning a fogged mirror. Shapes reveal themselves, outlines sharpen, emotions become understandable. And then, for the first time, you see without filtering. Silence doesn't isolate you from the world, it reconciles you with it. Because the voice that judges, interprets and demands steps aside, only the naked truth of the moment remains. But silence doesn't come suddenly. It's an art that must be practiced. The human mind, accustomed to noise, resists quiet. The moment a pause appears, thoughts rush in, tasks, worries, memories. It's the reflex of a soul afraid to face itself. Because noise distracts, but it also protects. While noise is present, you don't have to hear what truly hurts. You don't have to see what you're avoiding. That's why silence is frightening, because it reveals. Yet it's within that silence that clarity blooms. It's not about having an empty mind, but a clear one. Inner silence is not the absence of thought. It's the absence of useless thought. It's the space where reason, the logos in Stoic language, can speak with a calm voice. And when that voice is heard, decisions simplify. What once seemed confused becomes ordered. What once hurt without meaning finds purpose. Epictetus taught that no one can learn what they think they already know. Inner silence is precisely that, the willingness to not know for a moment, to let life speak without interrupting it with your opinions. Only then can you truly learn. Only then can you see what noise kept you from seeing. In stillness, the mind becomes a refined instrument of perception. It ceases to be a judge and becomes a witness. Inner noise, on the other hand, distorts reality. When you act from mental agitation, your judgments become impulsive. You make rash decisions, interpret with bias, confuse emotion with truth. And then you wonder why you make so many mistakes, why life feels so chaotic. But the chaos isn't outside, it's inside. It's the result of not giving yourself space to listen before acting. Silence in Stoicism is not passivity, it's contained power. It's the calm of the archer before releasing the arrow. It's the space between stimulus and response, where freedom is decided. Viktor Frankl, a spiritual heir of this teaching, summarized it centuries later. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our freedom and power to choose our response. That space is inner silence. Without it you react. With it you choose. That's the difference between living on autopilot and living with awareness. Noise drags you like a current. Silence allows you to steer. When you master the pause, you master your destiny. Not because you control the external, but because you govern the internal. Finding that silence doesn't require monasteries or mountains. It can be practiced amid traffic, at work, while waiting for a call. It's enough to stop for a few seconds, breathe, and observe, without judgment, without trying to change anything. Just watch what happens. That practice, simple, invisible, yet profound, transforms the mind over time. Because every pause is a reminder that you don't have to react to everything. Not everything deserves an immediate response. The Stoic knows that speaking too much wastes energy, but overthinking is even more dangerous. That's why the practice of silence is twofold, external and internal. Speak less, yes, but also think with more precision. Choose your mental battles. Learn to let passing ideas go. The silent mind is not empty. It's selective. It doesn't cling to the irrelevant. There is a wisdom only silence reveals. The acceptance that you don't need to understand everything. Some things can only be lived, not explained. And when you allow that space, anxiety dissolves. Because anxiety is excess thought. Peace is its absence. When the noise fades, the soul breathes. Seneca said, "It's not that we have little time, but that we waste much." And much of that waste happens in mental noise, in repetitive, useless, obsessive thoughts. Silence, then, not only gives you clarity, it gives you back time, real time, not of the clock, but of the soul. Time to be present, to see, to understand. Try this. Before replying to a message, before making a decision, before offering an opinion, pause for 3 seconds. Breathe. Listen, not to others but to yourself. That brief pause can change everything, because silence not only makes you wise, it makes you just. It prevents you from hurting with unnecessary words, from acting clumsily, from deciding in anger. Inner silence is the guardian of virtue. Without it, prudence cannot exist. Without it, temperance is impossible. It's the invisible foundation of all other Stoic virtues. That's why the ancients revered it. They knew that whoever masters their mind masters the world. And if today noise chases you, if your mind won't stop, if you feel overwhelmed by thoughts, don't blame yourself. We all begin that way. But every time you choose silence, even for a few seconds, you reclaim a part of yourself that was lost, the part that observes, that understands, that rests. That part is your center, because in the end, you don't need more information. You don't need more noise. What you need is to listen to yourself again. And that sound, the sound of your own silence, is the most powerful melody that exists. Sixth, Stoic lesson: what you fear losing was never yours. There's a truth that hurts, yet also frees. Nothing you have is truly yours. Not people, not achievements, not beauty, not time. Everything was given to you only for a moment. You are a guest in a house that doesn't belong to you. Yet we live as if we were owners of the universe, trying to grasp with our hands what is, by nature, meant to move. That is the root of suffering. Attachment, the refusal to accept that life doesn't belong to you, it only visits you. The fear of loss is an illusion. You believe you possess something, and by believing it, you fear it will be taken from you. But the Stoic looks deeper. How can you lose what was never yours to begin with? What was lent to you can change form, leave, or transform, and that's not injustice, it's natural law. Nothing is destroyed, everything transforms. Only the human mind, with its desire for permanence, resists that cycle. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his journal, as if repeating a prayer, "Remember that everything you love is destined to change." He didn't say it with coldness, but with tenderness, because accepting impermanence doesn't kill love, it purifies it. When you understand that nothing belongs to you, you love more consciously. You stop clinging. You begin to give thanks. Every glance, every word, every shared moment becomes a gift, not an obligation. What you fear losing was never yours. Think about it. You fear losing a job, but the job was never your essence. You fear losing a relationship, but the other person was never your possession. You fear losing money, but money never defined your worth. Everything external is on loan, and the wise remember this truth, not to suffer it, but to live lighter. Attachment is the weight that keeps the soul from flying. We disguise it as love, as duty, as responsibility, but behind it there is always fear. Fear of loneliness, of uncertainty, of emptiness. Stoicism doesn't ask you not to love. It asks you to love without chains, to give yourself without demanding, to care without wanting to own, to enjoy without fearing the end, because the end will come, always, and those who love knowing this, love better. Epictetus taught something still radical today. When you kiss your child, remember that he is mortal. He didn't say it to cool affection, but to temper it with truth, because only those who remember the fragility of things can appreciate them in their right measure. If you think something will last forever, you take it for granted. But if you know that everything can disappear, you live it with full attention. The awareness of loss doesn't lessen love, it deepens it. The fear of loss is also the fear of facing the void. We believe that without what we have, without what we love, we will cease to exist. But that's the great confusion. You are not your possessions, nor your relationships, nor your titles. You are your ability to respond to life with virtue, even when everything external falls apart. That's what no one can take from you. That's true inner mastery. Attachment also has a silent but devastating effect. It ties you to constant anxiety. The more you fear losing, the more you obsess over protecting. The more you protect, the less you live. Because all your focus goes to what could disappear, and you forget to enjoy what's here. It's like trying to hold water in your hands. The harder you squeeze, the faster it escapes. Serenity, on the other hand, lets it flow. Seneca, in his calm wisdom, said, "He who depends on what he cannot keep will never be free." That sentence should be engraved on every heart, because as long as you place your peace in things or people that can leave, your peace will be fragile. But when you place it in your character, in your virtue, in your capacity to accept, nothing external can destroy you. That is Stoic freedom, needing to hold on to nothing in order to feel complete. Learning to let go isn't coldness, it's spiritual maturity. It's understanding that everything that arrives fulfills its purpose. Some people appear to teach you love, others detachment. Some stages blossom to form you, then wither to push you toward change. Resisting their departure is staying stuck in a past that no longer exists. Accepting that they leave is honoring what they were. Think of nature's cycles. No tree clings to its leaves when autumn comes. It lets them fall because it knows that only by releasing can it prepare for new blooming. The same happens with you. Every loss is an inner autumn, and though it hurts to see what you loved fall away, that letting go is the prelude to a clearer rebirth. There is no spring without a prior loss. The fear of loss can also mirror your need for control. You believe that if you keep everything under watch, nothing will change. But life doesn't ask. It changes without permission. The only thing you can decide is how to respond. And when you learn to respond with acceptance, loss stops being tragedy and becomes transformation, because what leaves creates space for what must arrive. The Stoic doesn't seek to avoid change, he embraces it, not because it doesn't hurt, but because he trusts. Trusts that nature has an order, even in what seems unjust. Trusts that nothing disappears entirely. Everything recycles, everything returns in another form. What you think you lose transforms into experience, into wisdom, into calm. Nothing is lost if you know how to look. So when you feel afraid of losing something, remember, you don't possess it, you accompany it. And when something leaves, thank it for the time shared. Let go with gratitude, not resentment, because resentment chains, gratitude frees. Everything, every person, every stage that passes through your life leaves a mark, but not a void. The void is created by resistance, not departure. And perhaps the deepest lesson of all is understanding that the only thing you truly possess is your way of living, your values, your choices, your response to the world. Everything else, even your body, even your time, is borrowed. But that shouldn't sadden you. On the contrary, it should inspire you to live more consciously, with more humility, with serene intensity. Because when you understand that nothing belongs to you, everything becomes more valuable. Every encounter, every gesture, every sunrise turns into an unrepeatable miracle. And there, right there, true peace begins, when you stop demanding permanence and start living the fullness of the present moment. The wise don't mourn what leaves. They thank what was and smile at what comes, because they know that life doesn't take, it merely exchanges forms, and what is lost outside is gained within. Seventh Stoic lesson: gratitude turns waiting into fulfillment. We live in constant waiting. We wait for something to change, for someone to arrive, for luck to turn in our favor. We wait for better days, for more love, more success, more peace. Waiting has become a way of breathing, held, tense, suspended between what we long for and what we have. But there's a truth that cuts through that anxiety at the root. Gratitude turns waiting into fulfillment. Because what you're grateful for stops feeling absent. It becomes enough. The anxiety of waiting is born from a mind that measures life by what it lacks. I don't have it yet. I'm not there yet. It hasn't happened yet. That inner language creates an infinite distance between you and peace. But when you practice gratitude, that distance shortens. Not because everything outside changes, but because your perspective does. The Stoic doesn't give thanks because life is perfect. He gives thanks because despite everything, he still has the power to choose his attitude. Seneca explained it with luminous simplicity. No man is poor who can be thankful. He understood it as a principle of inner strength. Gratitude is not resignation, it's ownership of the present. It's recognizing what is here, what's already yours, what doesn't depend on an uncertain future. Properly understood, gratitude is an act of self-mastery. The anxious mind keeps leaping ahead, projecting a tomorrow that doesn't yet exist. When I achieve this, I'll be at peace. When that changes, I'll be able to rest. But tomorrow, when it comes, always turns into another when. It's a mirage that shifts every time you approach. That's why gratitude is revolutionary. It breaks that loop. It makes you stop. It forces you to look at what you already have and say, this is also life. This is also enough. Marcus Aurelius practiced it in silence. Each morning he wrote an invisible list in his journal. The light, the air, the simple fact of waking up. He did it not out of religious devotion, but as mental training. He knew that whoever begins the day in debt to reality lives defensively, but whoever begins it with gratitude acts from abundance. And abundance isn't having more, it's needing less. When you give thanks, time stops. What once was waiting becomes presence. You were waiting for an answer, and suddenly you notice the calm in your breath. You were waiting for an opportunity, and suddenly you recognize the lesson you're already living. You were waiting for someone to understand you, and you discover that you can sustain yourself. Gratitude doesn't change circumstances. It changes your perception of their value. Epictetus said, "Take nothing you possess for granted, and you will be grateful for everything you receive." That's the root of serenity, living knowing that nothing is owed to you, that everything that comes, even the smallest thing, is a gift. And when you live that way, life stops feeling like a constant struggle. Every gesture, every look, every moment becomes enough. But gratitude cannot be forced. It must be cultivated. At first, it's difficult, because the modern mind is trained to see what's missing, not what's abundant. It's like a misdirected flashlight. It only illuminates the shadows. Practicing gratitude is redirecting that light. At first, it feels artificial, just an exercise. But over time, that practice shapes the way you think, feel, and decide. You begin to notice beauty where there was routine, companionship where there was loneliness, opportunity where there was lack. Waiting stops being torture when you realize you don't need to arrive to feel at peace. You can wait calmly, without anxiety, without the weight of something missing. Because when you're thankful for what already is, each day stops being a bridge and becomes a destination. That's the Stoic's greatest secret, to live fullness now, not later. Seneca warned that the ungrateful man lives in constant war with time, with others, with himself. His soul is tense because he believes happiness is out of reach. But the one who practices gratitude reconciles with life as it is. He stops fighting the inevitable and begins to collaborate with the natural flow of things. That collaboration is peace. There comes a moment when you realize gratitude is not an emotion but a decision, a conscious choice renewed each day. You can wake up and count what's missing, or wake up and count what you have. You can look at what the world withholds, or look at what it still offers. The difference between anxiety and serenity lies in that choice. And there's something deeper still. Gratitude transforms the way you relate to others. When you're grateful, you stop demanding. You don't seek love to fill a void. You seek to share wholeness. You don't crave approval because you already feel complete. You don't demand understanding because you know everyone gives what they can. Gratitude makes you compassionate, and compassion makes you free. The Stoics knew that gratitude is also a form of humility. It's accepting that you don't control everything, that much of what's good in your life comes from outside causes, from invisible hands, from the harmony of the cosmos. And recognizing that doesn't make you smaller. It restores your place in the order. It puts you where you belong within the whole, not as the center, but as a part. There are nights when it's hard to give thanks, days when pain seems to overshadow all light. But even then you can be grateful for the lesson, for the strength that forces you to rise, for the chance to start again. It's not romanticism, it's spiritual endurance. The soul that gives thanks, even in darkness, never goes out. Gratitude doesn't erase problems, but it changes your posture toward them. Where there was complaint, there is now understanding. Where there was fear, there is acceptance. And slowly, that acceptance becomes strength, because you no longer depend on everything changing to feel well. And when you don't depend, nothing can steal your peace. Gratitude, in its purest form, seeks no reward. It's silent. It doesn't display itself online or dress in pretty phrases. It's felt in the way you walk, in how you respond, in how you see. It's a quiet vibration that says, what I have, however small, is enough to keep going. And when that feeling becomes habit, your entire life changes tone. What once weighed you down now teaches. What once hurt now shapes. What once frustrated now guides. Because the grateful soul doesn't search for signs. It recognizes them everywhere. Gratitude turns waiting into fulfillment because it transforms every instant into an arrival. You stop looking to the future as a promise and start seeing the present as a miracle. And in that silent change, without fanfare, without witnesses, you discover the greatest freedom of all, the freedom of not needing more to feel complete. 8th Stoic lesson, trust the process, not the rush. We live obsessed with getting there fast. We want immediate results, instant change, answers within seconds. Silence frustrates us. Time makes us impatient. Slowness makes us uncomfortable. But there's a truth you can't escape. Haste is the enemy of growth. Because what truly matters, what truly transforms, never happens overnight. Nature never hurries, and yet everything is accomplished. Modern humanity has forgotten the art of waiting, and waiting doesn't mean standing still, it means trusting. It means continuing to do what depends on you without the anxiety of trying to control what doesn't. The Stoics knew this. Virtue matures over time. No strong character is forged in immediacy. Patience for them was a form of wisdom, not resignation, but inner mastery. Marcus Aurelius wrote it with the serenity of someone who had seen both glory and disappointment. Everything has its moment, even if you are in a hurry. He, Emperor of Rome, surrounded by urgencies, understood that haste is a form of arrogance. It's believing you know better than nature when things should happen. It's demanding from the universe a schedule that exists only in your mind. When you trust the process, you stop living under the tyranny of not yet. I'm not enough yet. I don't have what I want yet. What I deserve hasn't arrived yet. That mentality turns each day into a race with no finish line. But life isn't a finish line, it's a path, and the Stoic learns to walk it attentively, step by step, without comparison, without measuring the worth of the journey by its speed. Haste is the disguise of fear, fear of wasting time, fear of failing, fear of being left behind. But nothing truly valuable is lost by moving slowly. Impatience doesn't bring you closer to your destination, it steals the joy of the journey. And in the end, when you finally arrive, you realize you missed the essential part, the process itself, where all growth was happening. Epictetus taught his students, "No one becomes wise overnight. Virtue is practice, repetition, error, and adjustment. Expecting self-mastery to come immediately is like demanding a seed to bloom at once. Haste breaks what is still forming. Every step has its time, every lesson its rhythm. Trusting that isn't passivity, it's rational faith in the order of the cosmos. The process isn't always visible. There are days when it seems like nothing changes, that you're the same, that your efforts bear no fruit. But transformation often happens in silence. Like winter preparing for spring, invisible progress is the deepest kind. While you think you're not advancing, you're growing roots. And without firm roots, no growth lasts. Seneca said, "Time reveals truth. Don't rush the harvest. What comes before its time rots quickly. What matures at its own pace endures. So when you feel frustrated, when life seems slow or unfair, remember, not everything that delays is lost. Some processes require inner maturity to sustain what you're asking for. Trusting the process doesn't mean giving up action. It means acting without anxiety, doing what depends on you and releasing what doesn't. Committing to the action, not the rush. Conscious action is a gesture of trust. You act because you believe, not because you fear. The one who acts with faith in his path moves more steadily, even if he seems slower. Haste, on the other hand, blinds you. It makes you cut corners, neglect quality, and confuse movement with progress. How many times have you chased something that, once attained, left you empty? Because haste pushes, but it doesn't guide. Trust instead centers you. It reminds you that no time is wasted if you're learning, no step is in vain if you walk with purpose. The process also includes mistakes. Haste punishes them. Trust understands them. Falling, repeating, failing. These are not defeats. They're part of the alchemy of growth. The gold of character is forged in the fire of time, not in the spark of urgency. Every delay teaches patience, every obstacle humility, every weight temperance, virtues born not in haste, but in perseverance. Marcus Aurelius found solace in the image of a river. Everything flows, nothing stands still, and yet the river never hurries. It doesn't try to reach the sea before its time. It knows its journey has its course, and it trusts it. You can live like that too, without speeding the flow, without fearing slowness. To flow is not to drift, it's to move consciously in the natural direction of things. Trusting the process means accepting that not everything reveals itself when you want it to. Some answers come only when you're ready to understand them. Patience is not just waiting, it's learning while you wait. If you grow impatient, the universe will repeat the lesson until you stop forcing it. But if you trust, you'll find that even silence and delay have purpose. The Stoic rises each day without demanding results, but with the determination to act rightly. He doesn't say, "I want to arrive." He says, "I want to deserve to arrive." That difference is immense, because the one who trusts the process doesn't seek immediate rewards. He seeks coherence with his principles, and that coherence is his reward, even when the fruit takes time. When you feel desperate, remember, the tree doesn't grow by shouting at its branches, the sea doesn't rush its waves, the sun doesn't hasten its rising. Everything alive follows a natural rhythm. Only the human being, with ego and fear, believes himself outside that order, but the order remains, waiting, patient for you to return to its rhythm. There is no greater mistake than believing you are late to your own life. You are exactly where you need to be to learn what today demands, not before, not after. Haste steals that understanding. Trust brings it back. And when you finally grasp this, something miraculous happens. You stop watching the clock. You stop comparing. You stop fighting against the rhythm of things. You align yourself with nature, with the logos, with the invisible flow that sustains the universe. And right there, peace appears. Because in the end, there is no wiser destiny than the one reached in its proper time. Ninth Stoic lesson: the natural flow rewards conscious stillness. There is a silent force that sustains the world. You don't see it, but you feel it. It's in the rhythm of the tides, in the way the sun rises unfailingly, in how your body keeps breathing even as you sleep. It's the logos, the natural order the Stoics saw as the divine intelligence of the universe. Everything that lives flows within that order. Only human beings with their anxiety and pride try to resist it, and it is in that resistance that suffering begins. We live believing we must push life forward for it to move, when in reality we only need to learn to accompany it. The natural flow doesn't need your control, it needs your cooperation. But the modern mind is addicted to friction. It plans, anticipates, forces. It can't stand emptiness, silence, or slowness. It wants everything to happen now, and when it doesn't, it breaks down. Conscious stillness is the antidote, stopping, breathing, observing, and remembering that you are not the center of the universe, you are part of its current. Marcus Aurelius understood this in the midst of chaos. While ruling an empire plagued by war and disease, he wrote, "Align your soul with the course of nature, and nothing will disturb you." He didn't mean it as poetic metaphor, but as a strategy for spiritual survival. Understanding the natural flow was his way of not breaking under pressure. He knew that even amid disaster, there is an order still at work. Trusting in that order is the first step toward peace. Conscious stillness is not inaction. It is the calm of the archer before releasing the arrow. It is the space between stimulus and response. It is what distinguishes the wise from the impulsive. While the anxious react, the wise wait for the right moment. They are not paralyzed, they act from balance. Stillness is not passivity, it is preparation. And only those who know how to pause at the right time can move precisely when the moment comes. Epictetus taught his students with a simple image. The dog tied to a cart can run along in harmony with it, or be dragged resisting. The cart will move either way. That is the essence of the natural flow. Life moves forward, with or without your approval. You can exhaust yourself trying to stop the inevitable, or you can synchronize with the rhythm of what is happening. It's not surrender, it's intelligence, because nature does not err in its course, only we err in denying it. Conscious stillness is a difficult art because it demands giving up inner noise, not just the external noise, the traffic, the screens, the empty chatter, but the noise inside your mind, constant comparison, self-criticism, fear of the future. A noisy mind is like a restless lake. It can reflect nothing clearly, but when the water calms, the reflection appears. So it is with the soul. When it quiets, it sees clearly what was once distorted by haste and tension. Seneca said the life of the wise resembles the course of the stars, silent, steady, free of unnecessary collisions. Hurry and chaos are signs of inner disorder. That's why Stoic training didn't seek agitation but serenity. It didn't seek quick answers but deep understanding. And that understanding only arrives when you stop running and allow yourself to be. The natural flow is not always gentle. Sometimes it pulls you toward places you didn't want to go, losses you didn't choose, paths you don't understand. But if you observe carefully, you'll see that everything that happens serves a purpose. The universe doesn't improvise. Every obstacle, every pause, every turn has a hidden function: to shape you. Resisting the flow is like shouting at a river to change direction. It won't. But if you learn to swim with it, it will carry you farther than you ever imagined. Conscious stillness is the opposite of resignation. It's not saying, "That's just how life is," and giving up. It's saying, "This is what's happening now," and acting from clarity. Accepting the present moment doesn't mean giving up on change. It means beginning to build it from truth, not denial. Whoever denies reality acts blindly. Whoever accepts it acts with power. In today's world, where everything competes for your attention, stillness is an act of rebellion. Stopping for a few minutes each day to do nothing, to breathe, to observe your thoughts without judgment, is a revolutionary act. Because in that silence, you hear what the noise of the world tries to hide: your own voice. And when you listen, you understand. And when you understand, you choose consciously. The natural flow rewards stillness because only the calm can perceive its signals. The anxious jump ahead, misread, and stumble. The serene observe, interpret correctly, and respond with wisdom. Nature always gives signs before it shifts course, but you need inner silence to notice them. If your mind runs faster than life, you'll miss the instructions along the way. Marcus Aurelius warned, "Do not be disturbed. The universe moves by its own order, and you are part of it." His invitation was to remember there is no separation between you and the whole. The same principle that makes a flower bloom or moves the stars also guides your destiny. And if you trust it, you don't need to force anything. Things will come when they must, and leave when they must. What's meant for you doesn't need violence. It needs coherence. Conscious stillness is also a form of respect for time. Not everything is solved by effort. Sometimes what's missing is space. Space for emotions to settle, for the mind to process, for the soul to understand. Giving time is a form of wisdom, because time not only heals, it teaches. When you practice stillness, you start to notice small, daily miracles. A problem that seemed impossible resolves itself. A conversation that needed to happen unfolds naturally. A hard decision becomes clear without struggle. It's not magic, it's harmony. It's life adjusting itself when you stop interfering. The natural flow rewards conscious stillness because deep down, life doesn't want your haste. It wants your alignment. It doesn't need you running. It needs you present. And when you are present, the universe cooperates with you. Everything seems to synchronize. The pieces fit. The paths open, not because you're lucky, but because you stopped swimming against the current. Remember this: the world doesn't stop because you pause. Pausing doesn't take you away from success. It prepares you to reach it with less noise and more purpose. Conscious stillness is not the end of movement. It's its root. From it grow the truest actions, the most just words, the wisest decisions. Just as the archer breathes before releasing the arrow, you too must breathe before you act. In that pause lives the difference between reacting and responding, between repeating the past and creating something new, between following chaos and flowing with order. And when you achieve that, when you learn to live in sync with the natural rhythm of things, something changes. You no longer feel at war with life. You no longer force, push, or plead. You simply do your part and trust. And that trust, that peace, that stillness is the greatest of achievements. Because life doesn't reward those who move fastest. It rewards those who learn to move with a tranquil heart. 10th Stoic lesson: letting go is not surrender, it's alignment. Letting go is not weakness, it's not abandonment, it's not escape. Letting go is an act of wisdom. It's understanding that some battles are won not by fighting harder, but by ceasing to resist. It's the moment when your soul, tired of pushing what won't move, realizes that true power lies not in control, but in allowing. Because what is forced breaks, and what is released finds its place. The mind fears letting go because it believes that in doing so, it will lose control, love, safety, or purpose. But the truth is gentler. When you let go, you lose nothing that was truly yours. What belonged to you by natural right remains. What didn't was never meant to stay. And that's not tragedy, it's cleansing. Nature doesn't cling. It lets the leaves fall in autumn, lets the day die so the night can be born. Everything renews itself because everything in its time is released. Seneca saw this as a higher form of intelligence. Nothing truly belongs to us except the use of reason, he wrote. Everything else, the body, possessions, relationships, fame, are temporary loans from the universe. To be grateful without clinging is the essence of freedom, but man, blinded by attachment, tries to hold on to what is transient. He wants love to last forever, success to remain unchanged, time to stand still, and in that impossible attempt he loses himself. Letting go is accepting that life owes you no permanence, only experience. That every encounter, every achievement, every instant has its time to bloom and its time to fade. What leaves doesn't take your worth with it. It only takes its completed role in your story. What remains is what's essential, you, and the serenity of knowing that nothing is missing when you cling to nothing. Marcus Aurelius practiced this amid power and loss. Love whatever happens to you, and love it truly, he wrote in his Meditations. He called it amor fati, the love of fate, not as resignation but as alignment with reality. The wise do not demand that life fit their desire. They adjust their desire to life, and that adaptation doesn't diminish them, it liberates them, because they no longer fight the river. They let themselves be carried by its current, trusting that every bend has meaning, even if they don't yet understand it. Letting go isn't losing interest, it's taking interest differently. It's replacing the urge to possess with the will to understand. It's no longer holding on to what you love, but learning to love without holding. When you let go, love becomes purer, more mature, freer, because it no longer comes from the fear of losing, but from the fullness of sharing. And in that kind of love, there is no anxiety, only gratitude. Epictetus explained it with a simple, timeless metaphor. When you kiss your child, remember that he is mortal, not so you love him less, but so you love him without attachment. That is the paradox of letting go, to love more deeply but with greater lightness, to live more presently but with less fear, to give everything but expect nothing in return. Whoever learns that stops suffering over change because they understand that everything changes out of necessity, not punishment. Letting go is also trusting. Trusting that what leaves makes room for what must arrive, that every ending is preparation for a beginning, that what doesn't fit today may have been diverting you from your true path. Life, though painful at times, always seeks balance, and that balance requires movement. Letting go is allowing that movement without resentment. True surrender is not defeat. It's emotional intelligence. It's recognizing your limits and aligning yourself with what is greater than you. Pride wants to be right. Wisdom wants to be at peace. And in that choice lies the difference between living in tension or living in harmony. When you choose peace, surrender becomes strength. Letting go is not always visible. Sometimes it's not about releasing a person or a thing, but an idea, an expectation, a story that no longer fits, a version of yourself that no longer exists. Letting go is allowing life to update you, and that update requires humility. Because as long as you cling to who you were, you cannot receive who you're meant to become. The attached soul is a closed fist. It cannot grasp anything new. The soul that lets go is an open hand. It receives, offers, flows. That openness doesn't mean lack of purpose. It means trust that purpose isn't lost just because it changes form. The stillness that follows letting go isn't emptiness. It's clarity. It's the clean space after the storm. It's the moment when the mind, exhausted from resisting, finally surrenders to the present. And when it does, something happens. You feel relief. That light, almost sacred feeling is the sign that the soul has understood. There is no more war, only acceptance. But letting go cannot be learned in theory. It's learned when life takes something you loved, and instead of hardening, you choose to understand. When a door closes, and you decide not to knock anymore. When a plan collapses, and you still give thanks. In those moments, the logos tests you. Can you trust even now? Can you believe that what left had to leave, even if you don't know why yet? The Stoic doesn't seek to understand everything immediately. He knows meaning comes with time, that every loss holds a lesson that reveals itself only when you stop resisting. That's why the wisest question isn't, why did this happen to me, but what can I learn from this? That simple shift turns pain into mastery. Letting go also means forgiving, not just others, but yourself. Forgiving yourself for not knowing sooner, for expecting too much, for getting it wrong. Forgiving yourself is letting go of guilt. And when you release guilt, you free yourself from the past, because the past cannot be healed through reproach, only through understanding. Then comes the deepest revelation. You realize that what you feared losing wasn't truly necessary, that you can continue, that you can be happy, that you can rebuild from calm. The strength of the one who lets go is not lesser than that of the one who resists. It's greater because it comes from self-mastery. Letting go is not surrender. It's alignment with life. It's recognizing that there's an order wiser than your will, a force greater than your plans, a path deeper than your logic. And when you accept that, life feels lighter, not because it's easier, but because you've become lighter. The soul that lets go becomes transparent. Nothing holds it back, nothing divides it, nothing binds it. It becomes part of the universal flow, a spark of the same fire that moves the stars. And there, right there, you understand what Epictetus meant when he said, when you align yourself with nature, everything happens in your favor. Letting go is aligning with the cosmos. It's no longer trying to control the waves, but learning to sail. It's trusting that even the opposing wind has purpose. It's living knowing that nothing is missing, because what is essential never leaves. And when you finally understand that, you breathe differently. You feel a peace that depends on nothing external. It is the end of resistance, the beginning of freedom. The serenity you sought wasn't waiting at the end of effort. It was born the moment you released control and chose to trust. Because letting go is not surrender. It's accepting that the universe always knew the way, even when you forgot it. The echo of the one who let go. There is a moment right as you wake when everything is suspended. Before thought claims you, before the day rushes upon you with its noise, there is a second of absolute silence. That second, small but infinite, contains the entire truth of Stoicism, because in that instant there is no past or future, no expectation, no fear, no control. There is only you, breathing, alive, present, free for an instant. That instant is your point of departure. Everything else that comes, the tasks, the conversations, the decisions, the plans, the disappointments, are layers added upon that foundation, but beneath them all, that same silence always exists. And if you learn to return to it, even for a few seconds each day, you will have understood what the ancient sages meant when they spoke of inner freedom. Because to be free is not to do whatever you want. It is to not be a slave to what you think. It is not to master the world, but to master the mind that interprets the world. You've spent too long trying to control the course of things, wanting people to act as you expect, wanting life to obey your rhythm. And perhaps that's why you've lived in tension, with a tight body, an alert soul, a mind begging for certainty in a universe that promises none. But today, here, now, something changes. Today, you awaken with a different awareness. Stoicism didn't come to make you perfect. It came to make you awake. Awake to your power and to your limits. Awake to the difference between what you can change and what you cannot. Awake to the simplest and most forgotten truth. Serenity is not a prize. It is a practice. Seneca wrote it with a lucidity that still cuts like the edge of a blade. It is not that we have little time, but that we waste much of it. He said it without anger, without reproach. He said it as someone handing you a mirror. Because if time is the substance of your life, then every day wasted in worry is a surrender of power. Every minute spent resisting the inevitable is a refusal of wholeness. That's why, when you let go, you don't lose, you recover. You recover the time you used to give away to anxiety. You recover the energy you spent trying to control what wasn't yours to control. You recover the calm that once slipped through your fingers. And when you recover that, everything changes. The soul that lets go doesn't fade, it lights up, because it stops living in darkness, trapped in assumptions and impossible desires. It begins to see clearly, to look at the world as it is, not as it fears it might be. And in that clear gaze, the universe becomes kinder, not because it has changed, but because you have. Letting go at its core is a radical act of trust. Not in chance, nor in others, but in life itself. It is to look at chaos and say, I don't yet understand the meaning, but I know it has one. It is to stop asking for explanations and start offering presence. It is to walk without a map, but with purpose. And that trust, once it ignites, is indestructible, because it does not depend on outcomes. It depends on your willingness to be at peace with the process, even when there is no certainty. Look around you. Everything flows. The sea doesn't stop. The wind doesn't apologize. The sun doesn't ask permission. Everything plays its part, without anxiety, without resistance. Only the human being doubts its place in the order. But today, as you listen to these words, you can choose something different. You can choose to return to your natural current, to let the flow guide you, without fear of getting lost, because the current is you. When you let go, you don't move away from the universe, you align with it. And then the world, instead of pushing against you, begins to accompany you. The things that once seemed impossible begin to unfold with less friction. The right people appear. The opportunities align, not because everything magically fixes itself, but because you stop interfering with what was already meant to happen. Marcus Aurelius, the man who ruled an empire yet wrote about serenity, understood it better than anyone. The universe is change, and life is opinion, meaning that nothing is permanent except your way of seeing what happens. If your gaze is straight, chaos becomes your teacher. If your gaze is clouded, even fortune becomes punishment. And now, it's your turn to decide. Every morning before the day traps you, you can choose. You can return to the old way of thinking, controlling, forcing, rushing, or you can do something wiser. Breathe, observe, and trust. Let life be, and respond with virtue. That is the deepest Stoic practice, to respond with virtue. It doesn't matter what comes or who understands you. The only thing you control is your response. If that response is born of calm, everything around you changes color. The same problem becomes opportunity. The same wound becomes lesson. The same day, different vision. But there is something more. Something the ancients knew that the modern world has forgotten. Stillness is not the end of movement, it is its beginning. When you learn to be at peace with what is, your actions become more powerful, because they no longer spring from fear, but from clarity. They are no longer impulses, but decisions. And the universe, which doesn't understand words, perfectly understands the frequency from which you act. If you act from fear, you attract resistance. If you act from trust, you open the way. That is why letting go is not surrender. It is synchronization with truth. And that truth is simple. You do not control the world, but you do control how you inhabit it. You can walk with a closed fist or an open hand. You can live as a victim of chance or as a collaborator of destiny. The choice is not external, it is within you. And if today you choose to trust, if today you choose to let go, the universe will respond. Not because it changes for you, but because you change with it. That is the Stoic paradox. When you no longer need everything to go right, things start to go better. So as you leave this session, don't seek certainty, seek serenity. Don't try to control the day, contemplate it. Do what depends on you, your words, your gestures, your decisions, and let the rest follow its course. Because the world doesn't need your perfection, it needs your lucid presence. And when the day turns chaotic, when anxiety returns or things stop flowing, remember this phrase. Letting go is not surrender, it's alignment. Repeat those words as an anchor. Let them bring you back to center. Let them remind you that you are not lost, not behind, not incomplete. You are exactly where you need to be. Don't forget, life does not punish the one who lets go. It rewards the one who trusts. And every morning that you choose to trust, the universe, silent, patient, exact, will respond again. Your voice is essential here. Every reflection strengthens and elevates our community, reflecting the true value of each individual and contributing to our shared Stoic identity. The reflection that receives the most support will be set as the standard of this community of Stoic minds, a community that does not flee from pain but walks through it with courage, with wisdom, with honor. We will see each other in our next gathering at Stoicism for Winners, where we will continue exploring the riches of Stoic wisdom applied to modern life. Now, take the opportunity to deepen your Stoic practice with new recommended podcast sessions. Follow us so you don't miss any reflection that could help you at just the moment when everything feels overwhelming. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we publish episodes designed to accompany you when life feels heavy, when it's hard to stay calm, when you need a word to remind you who you are. Not following us is to risk missing exactly that lesson that could bring back the peace you have been seeking. Until we meet again, remember, you are the sole owner of your perception, the creator of your peace, and the warrior of your own battle. This is the legacy of Stoicism, the art of being invincible.